My third client there was Chip Wilson, the founder of Lululemon. Gosh, he was so unique. He was building a company based on what it means to develop leaders.
Robbie, you're one of the most authentic people I know. You show up for your community every day, bringing joy and creating impact. I'm so grateful to have you as an Impact Kitchen ambassador. Thank you for being on the Impact Community Podcast.
I think it was in New York. We were having a conversation about retirement. That word has zero resonance for me. There's no way that I'm going to be sitting somewhere on a beach, just sipping margaritas 7 days a week. That doesn't speak to me at all. I can find a different version of myself that has a little bit more peace. Peace just means like I'm okay.
Robbie, you're one of the most authentic people I know. You show up for your community every day, bringing joy and creating impact. I'm so grateful to have you as an Impact Kitchen ambassador. And thank you for being on the Impact Community Podcast.
Thanks for having me. And thank you for creating Impact Kitchen, which I got introduced to years back. And it honestly has become a big part of my life. So I want to thank you right back.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be great to set the stage today of talking about listening. And, I've heard you talk about the 3 levels of listening. Can you walk us through just what they are and maybe provide some examples of, how we can all be better listeners?
Yeah, for sure. So with what I do, teaching communication is a really big part of leadership development. And a lot of the times we think that, communication starts with our mouths, but it actually really starts with our ears. And so one of the things that we like to teach our community is the idea of the 3 levels of listening. And so the 3 levels are level 1, it's all about me. Level 2, it's all about you. Level 3, it's all about us. Okay. And so there's a specific awareness that we need to have as to what level we're in. So maybe, Josh, tell me about your morning.
Busy morning, made breakfast for the kids, spent some quality time with them, and then it's straight to camp drop-offs, which for me to say it was the hockey camp for my daughter, and then it was into Impact Kitchen Liberty for breakfast.
Yeah, great. Okay, so if I'm listening to your story, right? So say if I'm listening from level 1, it's all about me. So basically I'm listening from a place where I'm listening from my own personal perspective. So I might be thinking in my head as I'm listening to your stories, like, man, I would have loved to play hockey when I was a kid. Or, I feel like kids might be something that I would want in my life at some point, right? So I'm listening from that perspective, right? My own perspective. Level 2 listening is I'm putting myself into your shoes. So we call it empathetic listening. So basically I'm like forgetting about myself and really trying to understand what you're feeling, what you're going through. So there's probably a level when I'm thinking about your story, there's a level of deep care that you have for your kids. There's this part of it is where like, man, he's probably got to get up early in the morning to take his kids to do these things. And then there's probably a piece of when you walk into one of your restaurants, there's like pride there. So what does it feel like for you to walk into one of your restaurants? So really trying to put myself into your shoes as we're talking about the levels of listening and level 2 in particular. Level 3 is probably the most sophisticated level, right? And we call that it's all about us. And it really is about the energy around a conversation or around an interaction. So all of the things that are nonverbal. So it could be the pitch of your voice. It could be body language. It could be the words that you use. It could be something as subtle as the energy that you feel. I don't know, have you ever been in a conversation where you've just been talking to somebody and there's just been like this vibe that you've had with that person? Have you ever been in a conversation like that?
Absolutely, right now.
Yeah, like right now, right? Yeah, and it's like a feeling that you get. That is level 3. That's level 3 listening. So it's I like to call it listening for the things that aren't being said. So there were certain moments that you were talking about your kids where I could see your eyes light up a little bit, right? When talking about going into Impact and having breakfast. I know how much time and energy that you've put into developing the breakfast at Impact. and there was something that was like vibrant about how you were speaking. So I can take those pieces of information and really learn more about you. And so the levels of listening are there's no right or wrong around them. It's just about this idea of being aware of where you are in a conversation. Because if you get stuck in level one, you're not really connecting to that person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I find like level 3 is something that resonated when you were talking about, how to converse with somebody. And I was thinking about, being a leader in a business, being in a relationship, a parent, a coworker, all these different facets of all of our lives. When you're working with people or even for yourself, like, is there a way that you would coach level 3 or bring awareness to somebody to get them into level 3?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think, like any skill in life, it takes practice, right? Um, by virtue of us being human beings, we're always going to be in our default level of level one listening because we have to be in some cases, right? We have to be listening for ourselves. When we're in a classroom trying to learn something, people watching this podcast right now, they're going to be listening from a place of level one. Like, how does the information that I take in affect me personally, right? So the first thing is to actually just be aware. Like, am I listening from a place of level one? Like, am I disconnected from the person? Can I put myself into somebody else's shoes? That could be a really great way to start your journey to level 3. Could I really be with you and really think about what you're going through, what you're experiencing as you're telling me your story, which is level 2? And then by virtue of that, then you can be in a place of level 3 and be totally present. But it really takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of practice and skill.
Well, appreciate that. I think that's a great way to set the stage for this podcast. I want to take it back though, and learn a little bit more about you and your origin story, where you're from, and maybe a couple stories from your childhood that's helped shape the person that you are today.
My gosh, feels like the childhood was so long ago. I would say I'm like an anomaly in my family. I was the athlete, the only athlete in the family. So I really cared about sports, playing sports, watching sports, and coming from an immigrant family, it didn't feel like that sports should be the most important thing, right? It should be focusing on school, focusing on your grades, playing piano, which I hated. But I always wanted to play sports, and just that connection to sports and athleticism and eventually fitness that's brought me to where I am today. Like, really.
That's awesome. I know we share some unique similarities in our fitness journey and how we got started. And I'm a big believer in the people you surround yourself really have an impact on your behaviors, your inspiration. And I was fortunate in my fitness journey to have an amazing group of clients that really rose my level of ambition, and particularly my co-founder of Impact, Frank Toscan, really made me see, what was possible, and, made me reach higher than maybe I thought was possible. For you, getting into fitness from your sports background, how did you get into personal training, and how did that evolve for you, and from your early clients and the evolution of some exciting opportunities?
Yeah. It's so cool that we have a very similar background.
Yeah.
It's like actually really kind of scary. But, originally when I graduated university, I wanted to go into physiotherapy. And then I did some like research about it. I did some co-ops, and I really found that it wasn't for me. And so when I had to divert into a different journey, I went into personal training. So I started working for a company called Innovative Fitness, really great fitness studio in Vancouver. And now they're in Toronto, I think, as well. But my third client there was Chip Wilson, the founder of Lululemon. And this was way back when Lululemon was probably only like 2 stores in Vancouver. And so I didn't really know who he was. I just knew that he was really, he was so unique. And he was a powerful human being. And one of the things that he really brought me into, the conversation that he brought me into, was this conversation of personal and leadership and development. And so that really kind of supercharged I want to call it my MBA in leadership development, because he was building a company based on what it means to develop leaders from within.
And now with your personal training, I know you evolved into, eventually opening your own gym. And there might have been some interesting learnings that came from that experience. Can you walk me through, the excitement of opening, the passion you brought to that, and then some learnings and some maybe tougher times of that whole experience?
Yeah. This is one of these moments where it's like, the heck was I thinking moments, right? Like where I look back and I was like, what? But this is where I have to have grace for myself, because like if I didn't go through all of those things, it wouldn't have got me here. So I always thought that I wanted to open up my own gym. Like Chip actually got me into this like thought process of setting goals, creating goals, like what is your purpose? And I thought my purpose was to open a gym and to like have world domination of, the gym was called Endorphin Junkies. And we were going to take over the world with these studios. Right? We opened up a couple of them. What I realized very, very quickly was that I loved training, but I hated running the business. I wasn't set up for that at all. And so the lesson that started to unfold after talking to Chip a few times, he was like, you know what? Like, what do you actually love about what you do? And I'm like, I love seeing the look on my clients' faces when they've done something that they couldn't do before. And he's like, that's your purpose, right? Personal training is just a vehicle, right? Your core value is impact. And at that time I was like, I don't know, what are you talking about? What is a core value, right? But we know that core values are things that like guide your behavior, like they provide a compass for your life. They help you make filters. They're a filter for your decisions. And so what I realized in that moment is that I could step into my core value of impact, but I could do it in a different way. And so I had to make a really tough decision and leave the business and put myself in a real precarious position. But I think it was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
It's so interesting how in life, it's so hard to predict what's coming next, right? Like, I'm sure there was a time where you thought you were going to have 1,000 gyms, and then through these unique opportunities and conversations, your life went in a totally different direction. Can you tell us a little bit about, the impact that Chip had on you in that process, and really what that relationship evolved to be for the next stage of your life?
Yeah, man, sometimes I get choked up thinking about he really didn't have to be the type of person that he was based on the success that he had. And what I really appreciated was him being a mentor for me. And it's something that I try to tell everybody now is like, find a mentor, find somebody who is going to not only support you, give you some structure, but also kick you in the butt when you need it and give you the bad news about yourself, or and also be a champion for you. And so our relationship over the course of, I guess it was like almost like 10 years at that point, he really was a safe space for me, but he was also one that would challenge me into uncomfortable things. And funny enough, he's the first Chip that has been doing that, and I hopefully can talk about the second Chip in my life that is kind of taking the mantle now.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you evolved into a role with Lululemon, and I've heard you explain Lululemon as more of a personal development company than a selling stretchy black pants company. When you joined, you mentioned when you first started talking with Chip, you didn't know what a core value was. I'm sure you didn't really know what personal development was. And now I think a lot of times when people talk about you, they think about personal development and how you work within your communities. But when you joined Lululemon, how was the evolution of becoming so passionate about personal development?
When they had asked me to come and work for Lululemon, there was a point where I was like, I know nothing about selling black stretchy pants. And so I was like, this is not going to work out very well. But what I really admired about them was that they recognized my core values and recognized what I could be great at, and that's connection to people. And so they put me into places where I could connect with human beings, and that I could be with human beings and help organize human beings together to find connection. And it sounds so cliche to say it though. It's like to be working in a job where you can be fulfilling your core values. It doesn't feel like a job. I had so much fun, like a ridiculous amount of fun working in that job for however long I did. And to think back on it makes me think, man, we got paid for this. But it was because of the culture that Chip had created around the idea of living into your core values, putting yourself into a position where your core values are become a conduit for your strengths, and then working at a place where they put you on the right seat on the bus. Right? There's nothing worse than working in a place where you're not being valued for your core values, or you're not on the right seat on the bus, and neither you or your employer recognize that. Like that can't be a good place to be.
Yeah, something we keep talking about is core values, and for myself, I found it easy to identify what's important to me and live my life according to those things. But I've really struggled to identify my core values, and I feel like they just evolve and change. And I've never said, okay, my values are integrity, resilience, honesty, the buzzwords that we all see. Can you take a few minutes and how does someone find their core values? And let's start with me here. What does someone need to do to identify these?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I'll say this. My belief is that you have your core values that probably were shaped earlier in life, and they probably haven't changed that much. There might be one or two that will shift because of time and circumstances, but for the most part, you have values that have existed within you that have guided you to where you are. Right? There may be values that you may think that are your values, but it could just be like a season of your life that has brought something up. But one way that I like to think about how do you identify a core value is, we have an exercise called the 4 H's, right? It's heroes, hardships, highlights, and homies. But I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll go through one of them, and that's homie, right? I feel like that's such an antiquated term now. Like homie, it's basically friend, but friend doesn't start with an H. So Josh, if you were to think about your best friend in the world, who would that be?
I'll say my wife.
Your wife. Okay. So if your wife could describe you in 3 words, what would they be?
Caring, passionate, loyal.
Caring, passionate, and loyal. When you say those words, how do those resonate for you in thinking about yourself?
They make me feel good.
Yeah?
They make me feel good, yeah.
How do you feel like those words guide who you are?
I think pretty accurately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so sometimes we have to think about how other people may perceive us in order for us to understand who we truly are. And like knowing you for as long as I've known you now, I know that those words ring true in terms of who you are at your core. And so we can easily say that those are your core values. Like that could be a really easy way to understand what your core values are. And there might be different words, right? Passion could look like charisma. Sorry, what were the other 2 again?
Caring, passionate, and loyal.
Caring, passionate, and loyal. Loyalty could look like connection. So it's, then it turns into semantics. But at the end of the day, really when we do core values work, the words, when you say them, you really need to feel them, right? If you don't feel them, like you were talking about earlier, like when people say like those buzzwords, right? They're saying it for the sake of saying it. If you say those words, if they resonate, if you feel them in your body, then they're probably your core values.
Well, it's funny because I felt good saying them. And it's like a good feeling. So that's, I guess, a good cue that if you're on the right track of it's just how you feel saying those words.
There's another hack for it too, right? And it's like reverse engineering in a way. So the things that you complain about the most, are probably the things that step on your core values the most. I'll give you an example. So one of my core values is integrity, right? Strive for integrity, not to be perfect, but to try to be the best that I can when nobody's looking, right? So one of the pieces of integrity for me is time integrity, right? I'm always the person on time. You can ask Lauren, my fiance, around being on time. Drives her nuts because I'm always like the first at a restaurant. But if there is a friend that's always late, it drives me crazy, right? So I know that integrity is one of my core values because of the fact that when somebody's late, that steps on my core value of integrity. So for one of your core values, what would drive you crazy? What drives you crazy?
The first thing that came to my mind was Toronto traffic. So
There you go.
I don't know where that fits in.
Well, what is it? What do you think it steps on?
Well, really all three of them when I think about
Okay.
it. You know, when I think about loyalty, well, time is a huge, so loyalty, when you talk about how other words could be related to it, like loyalty, I go to time as well, because I'm also a stickler for showing up on time. You know, for people who are always late, you know, to me, that could be a sign of lack of loyalty, lack of trust, lack of respect.
Yep.
So that was kind of, I was joking about traffic, but now as we talk about it, you know, I can kind of identify, you know, how that make me feel by just around the time piece.
Yeah. Yeah. It's perfect. Right. And so that's an easy hack. Like, what do you complain about the most, and why?
I love it. All right, let's talk about your core values.
Yeah.
And you know how they guide, you know, a daily, weekly, yearly life direction for you, and how you view your core values.
Yeah. So I talked about integrity being one. Impact. No surprise that I'm an impact ambassador. Connection is another one, and adventure is a fourth one. I usually have a fifth one, but like kind of just like playing with those right now because those speak to me right now the most. So impact, all the work anything that I do, when it comes to community, I feel like I need to give back in some way. I feel like there needs to be some type of like service. We use a term called a servant leader at PAC, and I feel like a lot of us who work at PAC are servant leaders. So impact makes sense as was one of my core values. Connection. I'm not. It's so funny because like I don't see myself as like a pure extrovert. I'm actually quite introverted. But if I'm like, COVID killed me when I moved to Toronto, when I had to be separated from people. And so like connection, I know, gives me energy, and connection could mean something like a text message. Connection could mean us hanging out, going for a run. So I just constantly need to feel the level of connection around me. And then the big one for me right now is adventure. I like things that are new. I like to be scared. I like to be uncomfortable. It could show up as travel. It could show up as learning a language. It could show up as meeting new people. It keeps like a level of energy up for me.
Nice, I love that. So some people might call you Mr. Community. You know, I've seen the passion you have for the communities you're involved in. You know, I meant it at the beginning. I've maybe never seen anyone show up for their communities better than you and offer so much of yourself to the different communities you're in. I'm curious, what do you get from community?
Well, first off, I do not think I'm Mr. Community. I can think of like, I'm honored if people think that. And man, there are so many amazing community leaders out there. Like in Toronto right now, Quentin Jacobs, Bernard, oh my gosh, like the Parkdale Roadrunners, everything that they're doing, Chuck Ortiz with the Food Runners. Like there's so many community leaders out there that I'm just a part of that ecosystem. So I don't ever want to think that I'm like that person. But sorry, was the second part of your question again? What do I get out of it?
Yeah, like I know how much time you put into these communities. What do you get out of them?
Yeah, so connection being one of my core values. Like I get the value of connecting to people. I started a track run club Friday nights, sheerly out of the intention that I did not want to run track by myself because track workouts are hard. So I just brought a few people together to run track with me because I literally would do one lap and quit if I was by myself. So having people come and join me to run track, which is hard, and we know this, when you do hard things together, it builds a level of connection, right? And so I get to feel that. Now it's turned into like this crazy big group. And I think what I get from it now is, Track Stars has always been about bringing people into track and not worrying so much about your time, but just getting used to the track if you're not used to it. And so seeing people do their laps and then do their races and then being like, yo, I got my personal best because I came to Track Stars. And like, it takes me back to when I was a trainer and seeing the people's faces and when they could do things that they could never do before. Right. And so there's a level of impact, which again, it's one of my core values. So yeah, it brings me a lot of joy to be in communities because of the connection, because of the impact.
I know running is one of your great passions, and you're actually training right now for an upcoming marathon. I want to get in the weeds for a minute here of you taking us through, you could do this current week in terms of training, nutrition, and recovery.
Yeah.
Let's start full week. How are you approaching it? I'm really curious.
Okay. I really hope that my coach, Nina, is watching this, is going to watch
Shout
this.
out Nina.
Shout out Nina, best coach in Toronto. Nina scares me. That's probably a good thing for her to be my coach. But she's got me on a program. Okay. But she's got me running 4 to 5 times a week. Right. So I'm doing either, 2 to 3 quality runs and then 2 just getting in the distance types of runs. And so I can't say that that's fun, but I feel very accomplished after I do that. Alongside of that, I'm going to shout out Jay Augustin at Jungle TO. I think this is the key. One of the keys to my training is that he has this class called Flow, and it's basically mobility.
Okay.
Right? Jungle Flow. And so it's so good for my body to be able to stretch and move and become agile and mobile. And so that keeps me, it keeps my body fresh. And then
how many days a week are you doing that?
I'm trying to do that twice a week.
Okay.
Right. And then from a nutrition perspective, there's probably not a day that goes by that I'm not ingesting at least. I am so grateful for this protein. But anyways, my nutrition is on point now, and it's mainly because I feel what the nutrition can do for my body in terms of being able to recover properly. Mm-hmm. Now I used to think that I could eat anything and just be fine, but like the second that I started shifting, my diet into like a little bit more of a cleaner diet, but also like eating good food, right? Like food that actually tastes good, that could be also good for recovery. And then the last thing that I do that I've like literally started to do again is going to other ship once a week and torturing myself in the cold plunge. Shout out to Nick McNaught, another Impact ambassador, who has taught me how to regulate my breath when I'm in the cold. Yeah, so try to do that at least once a week. It's a full schedule.
That's a full schedule. I'm curious on the recovery side, mostly because it's maybe one of my kryptonites is how do you approach sleep and when you're in this kind of training mode?
I think sleep is probably my biggest opportunity. It's my biggest challenge and opportunity. I've never slept well through the night. And there was a moment in my life where I prided myself on being able to do a lot without a lot of sleep.
Same here.
I used to think, no problem. I've got 4 hours sleep. I can do it. I can get up and do it. I'm realizing now that that's just not doable. So, trying to do more things like supplementation, having a proper wind down routine at night, not watch Netflix before I go to bed, not do the doom scroll on my phone. But I can nap. I'm probably like,
you're a napper, eh?
I'm probably the best napper that you'll ever. Napping is my superpower.
Okay.
If you want me to nap right now, I can nap on this couch right now on cue. I just fall asleep. Doesn't even matter.
Okay, well, I better get some more exciting questions here. It's a good segue because we have our impact community questions that we've been sent here. So rapid fire, but not so rapid.
Okay.
Take how much time you need. But I'm going to read out 10 questions and whatever comes to mind. Okay?
Okay.
All right, first one up. Favorite meal post-marathon?
A greasy large pizza.
Nice. Okay, your favorite tattoo and why?
I think it's, oh man, that's so hard. You know, it's so nice having, I got two. I got my mom and my dad here, and I got my mom and my dad here.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. CrossFit or yoga?
Oh. I'm gonna have to say CrossFit.
All right.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that's a kind of a non-choice for me right now, because I love flow. I can't.
Yeah.
That's my Anyways.
Okay. Advice to your 20-year-old self.
Advice to my 20-year-old self. I'll have two answers. The first one is take your time. And the second piece is invest in Amazon.
I didn't see that one coming, but that's hilarious. Okay, your favorite menu item at Impact Kitchen?
To get too many of these, I'm gonna call it out. Island jerk bowl with steak.
All right,
Let's go. I could literally have that every day.
I think that was Nick's answer as well.
Was it?
So that's a go-to right now.
Okay. Well, then you wash it down with a Restore smoothie with vanilla plant protein.
Perfect. Okay, what race is still on your bucket list?
You know, I'm calling New York. I'll say New York, even though I know I'm going to do it. But that's going to be my swan song for marathons.
Is it?
Yeah.
Heard it here first, folks.
You heard it? Yeah. Unless somebody out there can get me a bib for Berlin, London, Tokyo. Like I would do all of the majors, but I mean, it's hard to get it. They're hard
All right,
to
let's
get
put it out there.
Yeah, putting it out there.
Okay, what's one current habit you're trying to create? And then what's one current habit you're trying to break?
Great. Current habit, we'll go back to sleep, reading before bed. Like I want to recreate that because I used to read before bed and not doom scroll. So I want to create that. And then to break.
Yeah.
Man, what do I want to break? Lauren and I have like an irrational love of burgers. And sometimes we'll have too many burgers in 1 week. And you're like, man, we just had 3 burgers this week. So,
hey, balance.
Yeah. Sorry to call you
out.
All
right.
Sorry to call you out, babe.
Good habits here. All right, your favorite book?
Ooh. Right now, it's Untethered Soul.
Nice.
That book is like everybody needs to read that book. Yeah.
Great. Favorite running shoe?
I'm gonna make Petty mad here. It's not on, unfortunately. It's my Asics. I can't remember, Super Gel. I don't know what they're called. They're just Asics.
They work for you?
Yeah. And On's pretty good. I got influenced.
Okay. All right, last question here. What inspires you, Robbie?
Honestly, man, people like you. People that have a vision, that want to do great things. It's not enough to just have the vision and want to do great things. It's having the courage to actually try it and do it and not be afraid to fall flat on your face and not care about what anybody says. You're like that. There's so many people that I admire that I would call my inspirations that do that. So people who take chances, have a vision, and ultimately want to see some benefit in the world.
Well, appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, shifting into a little bit of thinking about your experiences, I know you've worked for billion-dollar brands and also for startups. What have you seen on what makes a great company culture, and then also how one can scale that culture?
In my experience, great company culture always has to start from the top. It's really hard for me to work for anybody that I'm not inspired by. And so there's something about the leaders at, every one of the companies that I worked at, walking the walk, right? So what does that look like? That looks like them living into their core values. That looks like them being honest and transparent. One of my favorite books, Good to Great, that talks about level 5 leaders, and these level 5 leaders have led companies that have gone on to like massive success. And level 5 leaders display a level of humility. Like if you were to ask them, like how did you get to this point? Like what did you do? And the leader would say something like, "It wasn't me, it was luck," or "It was like my people." Mm-hmm. So like having a level of humility when it comes to their leadership, I think it all starts with the leaders at the top.
Now, I know you've done some pretty cool coaching sessions with amazing clientele. When you go into a big company and say the leaders bring you in, how have you coached them and had maybe challenging conversations with these people who bring you in because their culture is being challenged, and maybe it's on them to bring it out? Like, how do you go about working with the leadership to bring that culture into the entire business or team?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, you could easily be intimidated in that moment, right? There were a couple times with a couple clients, I'm like, man, why are they bringing us in? And I always got to come back to this idea that, man, we're all human beings at the end of the day. We all have our faults. We all have our egos. We all have our fears. We all have our doubts. We all want to get better. And the people who want to get better are the ones who come seek out people like me, right? And so when I can approach it from that human level, it changes. For me, it changes like the perspective as to how I go into it, because at the end of the day, I'm just really trying to help people get over those things that hold them back and try to unlock their potential. And that it doesn't matter if you're a big company, startup, billion-dollar company, whatever. Everybody has those things that hold them back, right? And so, just going in with a different perspective.
Yeah, that's a great point. Somewhat recently, you started a new role as the VP of Leadership and Development with Pro Athlete Community, PAC on your t-shirt there. Mm-hmm. It seems like you were born to do this role, or at least have evolved into doing this role. Tell me a little bit about PAC and what your guys' mission is right now.
Yeah, this plays into this impact that we talk about this whole podcast. But man, I'm so grateful to be with this company. It's just like, so what we do is that we support professional athletes in the really tough and challenging moment when they have to leave their careers and start a new chapter in their lives. And going back to what I was just saying about changing perspectives of how you look at people, it's so easy for people to look at professional athletes and say like, well, they've made millions of dollars and they've done this, got this and that, and they're going to be fine. But they're human beings at the end of the day, and a lot of them need support. They need champions. They need a path. And so our company, really is focused on bringing that, that elevation to them, and for all the right reasons, right? And I think that they're in the ecosystem of professional sports, there are lots of companies that probably want to help these guys, but for the wrong reasons. And, the second Chip that I talked about at the beginning, Chip Pacek, who is our CEO, and Caleb Thornhill, who's one of our founders, they come to it with this idea of like this radical caring for for the human being underneath the helmet, and wanting to see them grow and to see them use their talents, because a lot of these athletes, they're retired by, gosh, man, like 28, 30, 32. It's like still like the rest of your life that you got to live. And so, hopefully we're able to provide these human beings with, the different resources, connections, education, for them to be able to find something that's going to be fulfilling for them as they move forward.
I love what you guys are doing, and it's been fascinating to just kind of hear the evolution there, and something that you're right, we don't think about, right? We put these athletes on a pedestal, and you never really think of that transition out of pro sports to living a normal life. What were some of the learnings of you talking to these athletes, talking to the people around them, of how they've struggled, how they get through it, how do you take away and learnings to help them ultimately transition?
Yeah. It's once again reminding myself that a lot of these athletes, they started playing their sports when they were 5, 6, 7. So all they've known is to be an athlete, right? And if you are fortunate enough to make it and to be moved along the ranks, a lot was probably given to you, and a lot was probably taken care of for you. And so, there's like a level of almost like, you call it learned helplessness, in terms of like the little things that we would think are normal tasks, like getting car insurance or opening up a bank account or doing things that, that we would take for granted. Some of these guys didn't know, and it's not their fault because they had everything, right? The one thing that really hurts my heart is that, a lot of these players, the second that they finish their careers, it's like the analogy of like when you buy a brand new car and then you drive it off the lot, right? That asset depreciates very quickly. And so a lot of these guys, they've gone from being, and women, by the way, we're going to be supporting women very soon. They've been put up on a pedestal and been told that they are this, and that. And then the second that the spotlight isn't on them anymore, that goes away very quickly and very heartlessly. And it could be a very lonely and isolating place for them. And that's the part that really gets me, is that like, these humans are amazing human beings, not just because they're athletes, but because they're human beings. They're fathers, mothers, brothers, aunts, uncles. Like they've got a lot of things going on. They got a lot of people like relying on them, and so to be able to support them is really important for us.
Well, it sounds like it checks all the boxes of your core values. So I'm excited to see where you take this role and what PAC's going to do over the next several years.
I appreciate it.
A question for you, somewhat selfishly. So I really struggle with living in the moment. And I know you've asked me sometimes, we just opened in New York City, and in the middle of the hustle and bustle, you kind of pulled me aside and you're like, how you feeling? And I'd be like, I feel good. And you're like, no, how are you feeling? And it was a reminder actually in that moment. And I actually tried to step away and try to think about, what we were doing in that moment and, what it's taken to get there. How are you able to live in the moment? Like, are you able to cue yourself, and then how have you coached other people, to be in the moment and just to not always be on to the next thing?
Yeah. Josh, I would love to be able to say on your podcast that I'm living in the moment all the time, but like, that's not true. Like, there are times where I'm like head down and being like, man, I am so stressed about this. Right. But I think what I do well is I can zoom out. Right. So for me, right now, the cue that I have to make sure that I'm zooming out is and the idea of a rose and a thorn. I'm reading this in Untethered Soul. So there are a lot of times where we feel thorns in our lives, right? So it could be like the stress of your work. It could be something that you have to do that you haven't done before. It could be like a voice in your head telling you that you're not good or that you're not worthy enough or whatever it is. And if you can if you can like recognize in the moment that that's a thorn and not a rose, right? Then you can shift your perspective. So like if I'm thinking about things and I'm like, man, I'm not smart enough to do this. Like, why am I even trying to do this or whatever? Then I'm like, that's a thorn right now. Like I don't need that. And then so I look for a rose, and a rose could be evidence of something that I've done in the past that does prove that I'm capable or that I'm worthy. So like if I talk about my marathons, like right now, Nina's on my butt right now because she's like, you're not going to make your goal unless you train a little bit harder. And I'm like, oh man, I'm getting all down on myself. I'm like, I'm not going to make it. And then I'm like, that's a thorn. What's the rose? The rose is that there was a point back in my marathon training before where I like kicked ass. So I know I can do it. Right. That's how I can stay in the moment. To me, that's staying in the moment. It's being able to like bring myself out of that place of stress, anxiety, or whatever it is, like the negative feelings, and try to bring myself back up again.
That's great. When you think about longevity, your career, getting older in general, like I know you, like, are you, what's next week? What's tomorrow? What's a year from now? What's 25 years from now? How do you approach that mindset of, where do you want to take the next phase of your life?
Yeah. I think it was in New York, we were having a conversation about the idea of retirement. And like that word has zero resonance for me at all. Like there's no way that I'm going to be sitting somewhere on a beach and just sipping margaritas 7 days a week, or like playing golf, even though I love golf, playing golf 7 days a week and just getting bombed with my other retiree friends. Like that doesn't speak to me at all. I think what's important for me is that if I am living into my core values, then I can find a different version of myself that has a little bit more peace, which I think is important for me. And peace doesn't necessarily mean quiet. Peace just means like I'm okay. I'm okay. I have enough. I have abundance in what I have, right? I'm surrounded by the people that I want to be surrounded by, and I'm doing work that fills up my heart and fulfills my impact. And so I think, once again, the core values is like going to be a huge player in that for me.
Robbie, I'm inspired by how you live your life according to your values. And, I want to tell you, you've made an incredible impact on me and the actual Impact Kitchen team and community with the work you've done with us. I'll speak for them of the gratitude that, you've shown us and that the team has benefited from what you do. So thank you so much for the conversation today. I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun, and really appreciate you, brother. And, you're making an impact every day.
I love it, brother. I appreciate you, and I appreciate how Impact feeds me, my stomach, but also my soul.
Thank you.